Man, Bills fans, what a wild ride this game turned into. You could feel the tension right from the first snap, because the quarterback came out looking almost too hyped for the moment. That early interception set the tone for a start that was messy, frantic, and honestly a little chaotic. Even on that long touchdown he launched to Tyrell Shavers, it felt like a play pulled straight out of the Josh being Josh vault. He passes up two open guys, tries to escape a pocket that is actually perfectly clean, then somehow decides to stay put and fire a missile down the field for 6. That is the full playmaker mode right there. And the crazy part is how entertaining it was to watch. Every twist, every misfire, every scramble, he just kept bouncing back and dragging Buffalo's offense with him. You could feel him shaking off the rough spots as the game went on. Things went sideways for the team. Things went sideways for him, but every time a door slammed shut, he ripped another one open. 6 touchdowns. 6. And when this team puts the ball in the end zone 6 times, they're almost impossible to beat. He basically strapped the cape on and said, "Hop in, I'm driving." And the duel on the other side? He always seems to rise to the moment when the quarterback matchup has some juice to it. His best days this season have come against Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Baker Mayfield, guys who bring out the competitive fire in him. And speaking of fire, how about the shakeup at receiver? Keon Coleman inactive, a big decision from the staff, and suddenly Tyrell Shavers steps into the spotlight. He makes 4 grabs on 5 passes his way, nearly hits 90 yards, finds the end zone, and even throws a massive downfield block on that Ty Johnson touchdown. That is seizing your moment. Gabe Davis finally gets some rhythm back too, picking up around 40 yards and making a huge conversion when they absolutely needed it. Nothing flashy, but very much the type of effort that helps you win tight games. Even some of the smaller plays mattered. Dawson Knox hauling in a tough 20-plus yard catch. Josh Palmer making a clutch grab along the sideline. Curtis Samuel nearly dropping one, but somehow squeezing it at the last second. Little sparks from all over the field. And the running backs in the passing game? Now, that is something Bills fans have been begging to see consistently for years. Against a defense that struggles with running backs in space, Buffalo finally leaned into that matchup. James Cook makes several huge plays through the air. Ty Johnson gets loose for a long catch and run, and suddenly the Bills are carving up the field with backs instead of only relying on receivers. When a quarterback is willing to take those check downs and let the backs go to work, this offense hits a different gear. Not the little bubble stuff to wideouts. Actual outlet throws, smart decisions that keep the chains moving and punish defenses for playing too deep. And on a night when he was spreading the ball everywhere, adding that layer made the whole attack feel unpredictable and explosive. And the crazy part? They dropped 40-plus points without leaning on the usual pillars of the offense. Dalton Kincaid was out, Keon Coleman unavailable, Khalil Shakir barely involved, and James Cook's impact came much more through the air than on the ground. Buffalo did not have the normal blueprint, and yet the fireworks show still exploded anyway. That tells you this unit has more in the toolbox than people realize. It also sparks a real conversation about the style of football they might need to embrace more often. They talk so much about efficiency, ball control, balanced drives, time of possession, but with the way the run defense has been, that clean, steady approach is tough to sustain. Sometimes you just have to open the throttle, embrace the chaos, and force opponents out of their comfort zone. And that is exactly what this game demanded. They overcame mistakes from every direction. They shook off 2 interceptions from their quarterback. They survived a pair of costly false starts from their left tackle. They bounced back after the muffed punt that handed the Buccaneers a touchdown. They won despite having fewer first downs and losing the time of possession battle by more than 10 minutes. It was messy, it was stressful, and it was the kind of game that makes you question whether Buffalo needs to lean into this more aggressive identity a little more often. Because when the quarterback is in full attack mode, when the offense is unpredictable, when they're willing to push the ball and trust their playmakers, they can overwhelm teams even without the normal pieces in place. And now the real fun comes on the defensive side because there were some young players who stepped up in huge moments, starting with Cole Bishop, who played one of the most impressive games of his career. This dude has battled through injuries, inconsistent rolls and long stretches without a clear path to the field, but everything finally looks like it is clicking. His interception completely flipped the momentum after things were slipping away. Tampa takes the lead late in the third. Buffalo answers with only a field goal despite great field position, and the frustration is starting to build. The stadium is tense. The energy is shifting. Then Bishop jumps in front of pass and gives Buffalo the ball right back inside the 25. One play later, touchdown. Just like that, the entire game swings back to Buffalo. And that was not his only big moment. He comes downhill to deliver tough tackles. He breaks up the two-point try with perfect timing, and he plays like a guy who has finally found his rhythm. Every week, he is stacking impact plays. Every week, he is showing why this defense needs him on the field. And with how shaky that draft class has looked overall, having a player breaking out like this is massive. Then you look at the wrinkle they added with Dorian Williams in the second half. Tampa's quarterback had barely run all season, but suddenly he is torching Buffalo on scrambles and keeping drives alive. So the Bills shift things around, put Dorian in that spy role, and free up the rushers to attack more aggressively. That adjustment paid off instantly. It helped them generate stops on late downs, and then he caps it all off by falling on the ball after the strip sack that sealed the game. A huge situational role for a young linebacker who is still carving out his place in this defense. And while we are talking defense, you have to give credit to Terrell Bernard. You could tell he was grinding through some pain out there, but even with the injury, he found ways to affect the game. 2 tackles for loss, a couple of passes knocked away, and several moments where he just read the play faster than anyone else on the field. You could literally see the difference between how he moved early in the season and how he is moving now. But even on a bad, he still plays like a guy who refuses to slow down. And then there is Jordan Poyer, who seemed to be everywhere. 15 tackles on a windy day in Orchard Park, coming downhill with confidence, making a big pass breakup and stabilizing the back end when they needed it. Not every rep was perfect, but he played like a veteran who understood how important every yard was in that type of game. Cam Lewis came up big too with that late pass breakup. Those are the plays that get forgotten after a win, but they matter. This secondary had to survive some uncomfortable looks because Buffalo committed extra bodies to dealing with the run, and that always leaves you thinner on the back end. But they stepped up when the game tightened and made plays that kept Tampa from stealing the momentum again. Even special teams got its share of highlights, which is not something you get to say every week. The return game looked explosive, especially with Ray Davis ripping off several long runs to flip field position. And while they did not come from scrimmage, his impact on this game was real. Then you mix in Ty Johnson and James Cook helping in other phases, and suddenly the running back group as a whole had a massive influence on the outcome without even dominating on the ground. And McCole Hardman, look, that muff punt was rough. No getting around it. It handed Tampa a touchdown and could have completely flipped the game. But he also bounced back with a huge kickoff return that helped erase some of that mistake. The team averaged nearly 40 yards per return, far beyond what they had done all season. That is the type of spark this group has been searching for. When you can consistently start around midfield, everything on the offensive side becomes easier. Mitch Wishnowsky deserves a nod too. He only punted twice, but one of them pinned Tampa inside their own 5 and set the tone for that entire sequence. Those field position swings matter, especially in a game where neither defense was in control for very long. And then Matt Prater goes perfect on a day where the wind was swirling. 6 kicks, 6 makes. No drama. No doubts. Those little details add up. But now we have to get into the uncomfortable part because there are things on offense that just did not sit well, and the biggest headline of all is Keon Coleman being a healthy scratch. Missing a Friday meeting is unacceptable on any team, but especially on a team led by a veteran locker room and a star quarterback who sets the standard. And the harsh reality is that this is not the first time the staff has had to send him a message. They have questioned his preparation. They have questioned his consistency. They have questioned his urgency. And this felt like the clearest warning yet. When you are still early in your career, still trying to earn your place, you cannot give coaches reasons to sit you down. And the timing makes it even worse, because the guys who replaced him delivered. Tyrell Shavers looked hungry, Gabe Davis stepped back into his role with purpose, and the offense simply flowed better without the constant strain that comes from trying to force targets to someone who is not producing. It is one thing to be inconsistent on the field. It is another thing entirely to make yourself unavailable because you did not show up when the team needed you. That is not how you survive in this league. That is how you get passed by. The run game was another area that left plenty to be desired. James Cook fought hard, but the lanes just were not there for most of the night. 16 carries for around 48 yards tells the story. When the game tightened, they found a small spark late, but for most of the night the ground attack felt like an afterthought. They were not able to lean on it when they wanted to, and they were not able to use it to slow the game down or control the rhythm. This was one of those nights where the offense succeeded despite the rushing attack, not because of it. And as electric as the quarterback was, those 2 interceptions were tough. Not backbreakers, not game ruiners, but still tough. The first was that flick under pressure that gift-wrapped field position for Tampa inside the 10. The second came on 4th down and looked like a throw into traffic that did not need to happen. Maybe the coverage baited him. Maybe he expected a route to uncover. Maybe he just forced it trying to keep the drive alive. Either way, it was one of those plays where the check down was sitting there waiting, and he did not take it. When he is in full aggressive mode, those decisions are part of the package, but they still hurt in the moment. And even with the win, the run defense continues to be an issue. You can see the strain it puts on the entire structure of the defense. They have to commit extra bodies, which opens up the passing lanes. They have to rotate things that take players out of their strengths. It is a tough place to live because no matter how many points you score, you do not want every game turning into a track meet. There were stretches in this game where Tampa dictated the terms simply by keeping the ball on the ground and putting Buffalo in awkward positions. And that is something they will have to figure out soon, because the schedule ahead is not light. Special teams had its bright moments, but it also had the downsides. The muff punt is the obvious one, but there were other little miscues that could have snowballed if the game tightened in the 4th quarter. There's a rhythm to special teams just like offense and defense, and some of those timing issues still need work. And now the focus shifts to what comes next because the Bills do not get much time to catch their breath. The schedule keeps moving, the stakes get higher, and the room for error keeps shrinking. There's a lot to clean up, a lot to build on, and a lot of questions still hanging over this team as they push through the season. Before we dive back in, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support helps us keep delivering the latest Buffalo Bills updates straight to your screen. And hey, don't hold back. Let us know your thoughts on today's news down in the comments. Whispers have been swirling across the NFL landscape after Pat McAfee's latest on-air outburst, and the Buffalo Bills find themselves right in the center of the storm. What began as a seemingly casual segment on his show has turned into the kind of rumor-fueled frenzy that fans, insiders, and social media detectives can't resist. McAFEE, never one to hold back, launched into a surprisingly sharp critique of the Bills, questioning everything from their locker room energy to the overall direction of the franchise. And now the sports world is buzzing. People close to the conversation insist that McAFEE wasn't merely filling airtime. According to those whispers, his comments carried the tone of someone who's been hearing things behind the scenes. Little fragments of dissatisfaction, hints of tension, subtle notes of frustration inside the organization. Whether he meant to drop a breadcrumb trail or simply let loose, the effect was immediate. Bills fans fired back with passion. National analysts replayed his segment frame by frame, and rival supporters gleefully piled on. Some observers speculate that McAfee's remarks may have roots in private conversations with players or staff who've grown uneasy with the team's recent vibe. Others think he was simply stirring the pot, fully aware that any critique of a franchise with such a devoted following would ignite a firestorm. There's even chatter that his comments struck a nerve with a few personalities inside the building, prompting quiet but pointed internal discussions. What's undeniable is that the rumor mill is now turning at full speed. Are there real cracks behind the curtain? Was McAfee amplifying truths the Bills don't want aired? Or was he leaning into his showman instincts, turning mild concerns into headline-friendly heat? No one seems to agree, but no one is ignoring it either. For now, the Bills maintain their silence, and McAFEE continues doing what he does best, talking loudly, confidently, and with just enough mystery to keep the entire league leaning in, wondering whether he knows more than he lets on. That's a wrap for now. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay on top of all things Buffalo Bills, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. We'd love to hear what you think in the comments. See you in the next update.